Hello, this short presentation is on the life in the hereafter. What does the Quran say? The presentation is based on a book, The Life in the Hereafter, What Does the Quran Say, by G.A. Pervez. The book is available on Amazon and online at islamicdawn.com. Death is a fact of life, and the Quran has covered this aspect in detail. The purpose of the creation as cited in the Quran is Allah created the heavens and the earth for just ends, and in order that each self may find the recompense of what it has earned and none of them be wronged. There are three aspects in this verse. The verse is in 45th chapter, 22nd verse. I've used this that first the chapter is quoted, then the verse. Allah created the heavens and the earth for just ends. The Quran presents a lot of evidence from the outer world, like the solar system, galaxies, moon, sun, earth itself, and other planets. And also asks us to look inwards and see what a human being is. And then it says that this all is meaningless if the human being is not around. And since we as a human beings have been given a freedom to choose, therefore we are responsible for what we do. The second part of the verse points to that each one of us is accountable for what we do. And this is what we will discuss and look at in this presentation, that how this system of internal and external accountability works in the universe. So for the creation purposes, the Quran puts all emphasis on human beings, that look around, the whole universe is created for you so that you can employ your choices and be accountable for that. And the next point is none of them be wrong. The system is so meticulous, so comprehensive that it is all based on justice. No human being will be dealt unjustly. Now we will look at three more verses which are important in this context. The first is in 59th chapter, verse 18, and let every self look to what he has sent forth for its tomorrow. The Quran repeatedly says that since we are responsible for our actions, therefore we should see that what we do in this life, which is going to affect our tomorrow, not only our tomorrow, but the tomorrow of others. So from Quranic point of view, today is your today and tomorrow is your hereafter. And since the life is to go beyond death, therefore what happens in the hereafter is also part of our tomorrow. So Quran is putting emphasis here that at every point in time human beings must see that what they do, what is going to be its effect on tomorrow. The next verse is about the human self. And be you not like those who forgot Allah, and He made them forget their own self. Such are the fasiqun, are the individuals who will not get any self-development. Now, if we say Allah is the one who has created the universe and us, then He is not visible, and it doesn't affect Him if we forget Him. So forgetting over here means essentially that we forget our own self. If we do not look at our accountability, and if we do not follow Allah as a model as given in the Quran in terms of attributes and values, then we are essentially forgetting the purpose of our life, which is accountability and then self-development. And our thinking and deeds have a very strong influence on the way we look at life. If we are following our desires, then obviously we are not looking at the higher purpose of life. And fasiqun over here means the fruit which remains unripe. It falls from the trees and is never ripened. So we are wasting ourselves. So the term used in the Quran is very essential to understand. It means that the purpose for which we have been created, that is to develop our own self by making Allah as a model, then we are failing in that purpose. And this, of course, creates imbalances within our personalities and in our thinking. The next verse is, we have revealed for you, O mankind, a book in which is a message for your eminence. Will you not then use intellect and reasoning? Now, normally it is understood that Quran is the book for Muslims. The book the Quran repeatedly addresses the mankind in its verses. Over here, the Quran, as by addressing you, is addressing the whole mankind and saying that look at this message, use your intellect and reasoning and see, does it answer your questions about life? Does it appropriately and the best way to answer your questions? And does it present a solution for your problems? So Quran repeatedly asks us to use intellect and reasoning in our life. We have a free will, our freedom to choose. In our life, we are always presented with choices, and it is up to us which path we want to take. If we take the path on the left, we will face the consequences of following this path. And this is what the Quran says. While we have a choice to follow whatever path we select in our life, we do not have a choice to alter the effects of following that particular path. So it is important for us to find out that the path we are following, is it giving us the desired results, and whether those desired results are in line with our self-development. The Life in the Hereafter, the book on page 43, it quotes, the human self is that entity which is referred to as I. We call ourselves I or me, and the rest we call as mine or my. For example, my property, my friends, my wife, my children, my body, and even my life. Human actions affect this I, and at the time of death, whatever comes under the category of my or mine is left behind, and the I proceeds alone to the next life. Now, this particular statement needs a bit of reflection on our part, and we can relate it to our day-to-day living in this life. The main objections to the hereafter, I have listed them here. The first is, once human body dies, there is nothing left to go forward. That is, people think that it is our body which defines us, and we do not pay adequate attention to our mind, our thinking, our sense of being. We'll briefly touch on that. Human birth is through the reproduction process, and this is the only way human life can be created. Yes, that is true. As far as this life is concerned, human birth, the physical birth, is the only way to come in this life. And when we come to this life, at the time of the birth, we have a plain slate. We have nothing in our memory. Allah is not capable of creating life in any other way. Now, this is important. We have to look around all the creation and see the one who has created the universe, the one who has put a process on ground for our birth. Is he capable of creating us again? There is no inner self within us, that there is nothing within us which has the ability to go forward. The events in human life are at random, without any order, or not following any law. Now over here, I have come across many books where the law of unintended consequences is written down. Over here, we will find out that there is a law, the law of requital, which works 24/7 in our life. This human creation has no purpose. We are born, we live, and we die. The Quran opposes this concept and says, no, there is a purpose. All the pain, all the misery which human beings cause for each other, there is a purpose behind that. And the purpose is the accountability of human beings. This is a human world in which their free will works, and they are responsible for what they do. No thinking beyond this life as it does not suit me. Now, this is the last one where many people do not want a responsibility and think this is the only life, and they would like that everything finishes with their death. Human needs. We have human needs, and there are three types of needs I've noted over here: the basic needs, the self-created needs, and intellectual needs. And we will look at Maslow's pyramid of needs very briefly. Abraham Maslow put down this, divided these into three needs: basic needs, psychological needs, and self-fulfillment needs. His view was that as our physiological needs are met, we long to meet our psychological needs, and then we go higher. The Quran says that all our needs are met when we are working within the permanent values and establish a system based on the permanent values. The Quranic evidence. The life originated from water and mud. The Quran says that the life started from water and mud, as we know through evolution as well, that the life started from the mix of water and mud. And then the universe started from nothing. Life after its origin progressed through evolution and branched off into different species. Then the laws were created and processes were set in place. Created man into pairs and reproduction was introduced. Created mind to provide us free will and freedom to make choice. Now this is where the Quran says that we turned from animals to human beings, responsible beings. We were given a mind. And if we look at it from mind's point of view, we can say that the purpose of our creation was to create mind and body was attached to it. So free will and freedom is what defines us as human beings. And this is what the universe is meant to be. The universe is for us. We are not for the universe, as we will move away from this universe to another life. Creation of seeds with potential to grow if the environment is conducive for growth. The Quran gives a lot of examples and refers back to the life of a seed, which has all the potentials, and if proper environment is given to this seed, it will grow up what it is destined to grow. And in this life, we are given this opportunity, a mind, a body, to use it and to create our own seed for the hereafter, where the environment will be conducive for that particular seed which has grown based on Iman and righteous deeds. I'll touch it later on. Man held responsible for his deeds due to the free will. Provided opportunity to man develop his own seed using his tools and his self. So the entire responsibility is on man himself. Allah will resurrect ourselves after physical death. And this is where the Quran comes in. It says, the way you were created the first time, there is a procedure to put you back with yourself into a new self, which will not be like the physical self, but you cannot understand it at present level of understanding. This is all covered in detail in the book. The question is that, can Allah do it? Do we have evidence for this? Addressee of the Quran is human intellect and reasoning, powerful and rich, because powerful and rich control the world, and the Quran addresses them repeatedly, asking them to change the system within the permanent values and do not follow your desires. Religious hierarchy, it addresses them that you should not exploit human beings and their thinking, and do not enslave them. It addresses all mankind, asking them that look at the purpose of your life. The death is a fact of life. All of you are going to be dead. So you should consider the option that if there is another life, then where are the answers? Question it. Think about it, reflect about it. The whole Quran is repeatedly filled with emphasis on intellect and reasoning. And finally, it addresses the mu'mineen who accept the permanent values of the Quran and its truth, and who say that yes, as they follow it, they find the change within themselves. They hold themselves accountable and they start doing the righteous deeds, which helps to develop their self. And this all from individual to a collective system, which is called Deen. Now, Deen is a system in which not only the basic needs of human beings are met within the permanent values, but they are also provided all the opportunities to develop their own self. There is no exploitation there. The human beings follow the permanent values. No human being can enslave another human being. What is a human being? Let's have a briefly look at it. Our physical self, which follows the physical laws. We have seen that we are what we eat. When we eat, we do nothing. It is our body which just does the rest of the job according to the laws for which it has been designed. For example, modern medicine deals with this side, our body and its functioning. Next, we have our inner thought process, which is based on our mind. This includes our emotions, thinking about thinking, which is metacognition, memory, where we store everything. If something is not in the memory, we can't use it. Linguistic ability. This is given to us if we can think and express ourselves. Like I'm using this ability to pass on this message to yourself. Senses. This is where we deal with values. We have a strong sense of identity called I. I know that I exist. This I does not change as we live our life. Second is our sense of being. This is based on our education, training, our outlook, our attitudes, our behaviors, whatever we are thinking at that point in time about our own self. Our cars, our family, everything forms part of our sense of being. And then third is our memory. If it is not in the memory, as I said earlier, then we can't use it. All education and training is stored in our memory. All our past is stored in our memory. And this is our self. That is our sense of identity, our sense of being, and our memory. And all these three are united as one. And this is what we call self. And if we develop our sense of being within the permanent values of the Quran, then it will become a Quranic sense of being. There are essentially two concepts of life. First is man has a physical body, it needs social life within a society. An individual can break the law and may not be brought to justice. An individual, even if caught, can escape justice through bribe, favor, lack of evidence, miscarriage of justice, etc. In any case, when the body dies, human system of justice stops interfering. It cannot do anything. Second is that the man has a self over and above the physical body, as I said earlier, which consists of our sense of identity, our sense of being, plus our memory. This self is affected by what man does in this life, i.e., this effect is independent of the human justice system, as one cannot escape the effect of his deeds on his self. And we can try it. Whatever we are thinking and whatever we are doing, it affects our memory, it affects our self-concept, it affects our sense of being. This slide essentially illustrates what I have already noted, the progressive evolution. First, water and clay, then the emergence of life, then the emergence of human beings, and then mind with the ability to create a self. This is where human being is created or comes into form. And this is where the law of requital and the law of respite becomes effective. I'll touch it in slightly later. And then we live this life by creating our own seed, our own self, which goes to the hereafter, after our body dies. And then the developed self to grow further in the new environment. If the self has developed itself within the permanent values, then it develops the ability to go on to further stages of evolution. What is the law of requital? Every cause has an effect. In moral spheres, this is called the law of requital. Everyone gets the result of his deed. The result is only of own work, whether done individually or as part of a team. No deed can remain without a consequence. Constructive deed will have pleasant result. Destructive deeds will have unpleasant result. That is, the whole system is worked within us. We have seen, we can try it, that whatever we do in our life, first we think about it. We can't do anything unless we think about it. So the law of requital works right at our thinking level, inner level. And no justice system, no human justice system has access to it. Let's look at some of the verses which deal with the law of requital. The first verse is chapter 7, verse 147. Those who reject our signs and the meeting in the hereafter, vain are their deeds, can they expect to be rewarded except as they have wrought? Second verse is chapter 10, verse 52. At length will be said to the wrongdoers, taste you the enduring punishment you get, but the recompense of what you earned. So it is not Allah who punishes people, or generally as it is thought within the religious circle, that there is some place called hell where there is a fire. Quran says these are all inner states of mind. So whatever we do, it has effect on our life, and whether this life or the next life. The law of respite. There is another verse which we would like to look at under the law of requital. The reward or punishment cannot be transferred to others. Say, O mankind, the truth has come to you from your sustainer. So whoever is guided is only guided for the benefit of his own self. And whoever goes astray only goes astray against own self. And I'm not here to manage your affairs. And a couple of more verses. No self does evil except against itself, and no bearer shall bear another's burden. Now this is a permanent values that nobody can bear the burden of others because it is inbuilt within us. If we look at it, we ourselves, each one of us is a complete unit. My pain is mine, my pleasures are mine. Nobody can share it. The others can understand it through the emotion of empathy, but they cannot share exactly the same what I feel about any issue. So indeed, should I disobey my Lord, I fear the punishment of a tremendous day. The time interval between the deed and the result is called the respite period. The time of respite is allowed so that before the final destruction of a man, he can take actions to save himself from the consequences of his wrong deeds. We can test it in our life, where if we do something wrong to someone, he may not retaliate immediately, but after a while, he might be in a position to teach us a lesson. Same goes for doing good. And this is more applicable on a society or as a nation state or as a world. Whatever we do in the past is going to face us in the future. We can see at present there are many events going on for which we find enough reason in the past because of which we have reached this stage. So it is up to us that we make use of this law of respite and turn back the clock and start doing good. There is another verse, the law of respite, and if Allah were to hold people accountable immediately for their wrongdoing, He would not have left upon the earth any creature, but He defers them for a specified term. And when their term has come, they will not remain behind an hour, nor will they precede it. So we can work it out because we have intellect and reasoning to look at it. So law of respite is a blessing. If I put my finger in fire, it will burn immediately. That is the physical law of cause and effect. But in the moral sphere, where our thinking is working, there is always a gap. There is a gap between what we do and the consequences of that. So it is important for us to understand the good and the bad consequences of what we do in our life. And we cannot escape it. Therefore, this concept of forgiveness from Allah is null and void. We are responsible for what we do. And it is only good deeds replace bad deeds. So our job should be, whether individual or collective, to do a lot of good deeds. Balancing of deeds. The Quran points to this aspect that ultimately the consequences or the result is decided by the balance between the good and the bad. The weighing of deeds on that day is a truth. So for those whose deeds weigh heavy in the scales, it is they who are successful. And we can assess it ourselves that by looking at our past life, that what exactly did we do. As for those whose deeds weigh light in the scales, it is they who have ruined themselves because they used to wrong our signs. Another verse, and whoever does an atom's weight of evil will see it. So whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it. So we should make sure in our life as individuals that on the balancing of deeds, our good deeds should be more than the effects of our good deeds should be far more than the wrongs we do in our life. We should essentially avoid doing wrong even at a thinking level. Repentance. To compensate for the loss of wrong decisions in life is that you do so many righteous deeds so that their constructive results can compensate for the destructive results of your wrong actions. And in chapter 11, verse 114, it says, indeed, good deeds efface misdeeds. This is a permanent value as well. And we have seen it in terms of physical laws that when we are sick, we use medicine. So medicine is good, disease is bad. So medicine helps to treat diseases. Repentance. One who repents has iman, conviction, and acts righteously and then follows guidance. Now this is important. Quran puts a lot of emphasis on Iman. Iman essentially means the conviction that law of requital is working in our life, and who is making it work is Allah. And Allah as a model, as a righteousness, where in the Quran there are a number of attributes which Quran asks us to follow. For example, Quran, Allah is just, so we should be just in life. Allah overlooks some of the faults of others, we should also overlook. He is making sure that the law of requital is working in our life, so we should have a high level of accountability within human life. So all these permanent values are given, some of these permanent values are listed at the end of the book. The second verse, 28th chapter, 67 verse says, "As for him who repents and has Iman and acts righteously will be among those who achieve success." The rise and fall of nations also comes within this law of requital and the law of respite. The laws of requital and respite are equally applicable to nations in the world. Nations harnessing the forces of nature and benefiting from the science and technology, but do not follow the permanent values. They benefit from the science and technology, but ultimately they fall because they fail to follow the permanent values. Because of their actions on the world, the injustice spreads and a lot of wrongs are done. And it is their own deeds which bring them down. Nations which do not benefit from the science and technology and do not follow the permanent values, they suffer in this life. Because science, the book of science, is also from Allah. The book of science we find out ourselves. As far as the permanent values are concerned, these are given in the form of a revelation in the Quran and the former books. But Quran is since preserved and protected, so it has all the original values in their original form. Nations which benefit from the science and technology and the permanent values, they are the ones who will bring deen as a system which will replace the capitalist system. The capitalist system is inherently exploitative according to the Quran, because in that the reward is for the capital, not the work. Whereas the Quran repeatedly puts emphasis on meeting the basic needs, which is a permanent value, and rewarding for the work, not for the capital. So the value under the deen is reward must be for the work, because human beings should work. We are meant to work. We are meant to use our intellect and our physical body for the good of our own self as well as for the mankind. Over here, I've quoted a verse from 22nd chapter, 47th verse. "Yet they asked you to hasten the punishment, but Allah will not fail in His promise. Verily a day in the sight of your sustainer is like 1,000 years of your reckoning." So the Quran says that human beings think that the law of requital is not working if they look at it on a short term. And because in the human world, in the absence of permanent values, might is right generally works. So those who are powerful think they are getting away with their misdeeds. But that is not true according to the Quran. It can take 1,000 years for nations to come down. But Quran says, look at the history, and that will tell you that it does come down. They do come down. There is no nation which can work outside the permanent values and do not meet their decline. One verse to reflect. "And we had firmly established them in prosperity and power, which we have not given to you, Arabs, and we had endowed them with faculties of hearing, seeing, heart, and intellect. But of no profit to them were their faculties of hearing, sight, heart, and intellect when they went on rejecting the signs of Allah." The signs of Allah means over here the purpose of our creation, the permanent values, what we are looking at, being wrong to other fellow mortals. And they were completely encircled by that which they used to mock at. "We destroyed aforetime populations round about you, and we have shown the signs in various ways, that they may turn to us," that is, i.e., to this message. The day of judgment. This is referred quite frequently in many religious texts. The universe is created with a purpose. Its existence is for a defined period of time. There was a time when there was no universe. The resurrection or rising up of man can be this world where weak and deprived rise up to claim their rights. The resurrection in the next life is for everyone. This aspect is in detail covered in the book. Indeed, your sustainer will judge between them on the day of judgment concerning that over which they used to differ. Now, this day of judgment can be because of our collective deeds arrive in this life. For example, the day of judgment of Hitler arrived right in this life through human hands. And Quran has referred to it that one set of people, if they don't counter another set of people, there will be a lot of trouble in this world. But those who are righteous shall be above them on the day of judgment, and Allah provides for whomever He wishes as per His law without any reckoning. In the Quran, wherever this term comes, whoever He wishes, it means His law. Next slide. So what is the requital of those of you who do that except disgrace in the life of this world, and on the day of resurrection they shall be consigned to the severest punishment. And Allah is not oblivious of what you do. So if we do not follow the laws in this life, we do not follow the permanent values, at some stage in our life, we suffer the consequences right in this world, particularly as a collective society, as a collective nation, even as a world. And each one of them will come to Him alone on the day of judgment. Now, this is a fact. We are alone. Each one of us is alone. So we should not be deceived by the collectiveness, by the numbers of human beings around us. Each one of us is individually accountable for our deeds, because each one of us is a complete unit. We possess a self which is not affected by others. We make our own decisions, even if we are influenced by others. So we must not be influenced by others. We should make our own decisions based on the consequences for us and for others. All those things which man calls mind remain in this world, while I, i.e. human self, goes forward after death. The human self, it has ability to choose, means no inner guidance which can guide man. Since we have ability to choose, we like animals are not guided. We make our own choices. We can eat anything, unlike a goat which is vegetarian. We need values, relative or permanent. Thinking comes before our actions. Our default status is emotive. So we have to rise above the emotive state to rational state and to the Quranic value state, that is within the permanent values. Because we do not have any inner guidance, we need the revelation or the permanent value as an external standard. Our thinking defines us. Body just follows our thinking, our mind. Everyone has a self which develops according to our deliberate thinking and decision making. The Quran addresses the human thinking and deals with the issues of intellect and reasoning. Now over here, very briefly, I'll go over some of the points which are related to hell as far as the Quran is concerned. In this life, hell can be the physical punishment, for example, imprisonment, torture, deprivation, beating. In this life, it can be mental torture and unhappiness. For next life, it is not a place of abode. It is the state of development of the human self, this life as well as the next. For this life, it can be individual and collective, for example, nations, groups, and people. Paradise, what is it? In this life, it can be the state of development of the Islamic system, that if we establish a system which is based on the permanent values, then the life within that system will be that of paradise, because our physical needs as well as the needs of the self are met as well. Under the capitalist system, only physical needs are met. Those two, again, there is a massive gap between rich and poor. And this keeps increasing. We have seen it, that as it keeps increasing, it creates hell for those who are at the bottom of the society. For next life, it is not a place of abode. It is a state of development of the human self. There are stages within this for the righteous, depending upon the state of development. Within a paradise, there is no hell, and within hell, there is no paradise. We must remember that if we are applying to this life, this world, even if we are divided into different nation states, one nation state does affect other nation state. So we are working in a global human system. And as far as the Quran is concerned, it does not recognize any physical boundaries. It takes the world as a whole. The next life, what does the Quran say? Everyone will survive the death, whether we like it or don't like it. And this is a point which needs reflection, our inner reflection. Those of us who think there is no other life, just think for a moment, if there is another one, then what? And it is forever. It is forever, but this is not like the immortality of Allah. This is discussed in the book in detail. There are stages of development, no stagnation in paradise. The Quran says that the life is meant to go forward. It is dynamic. If life is static, that is death. That is why we don't find any life in a cemetery. So next life is not stagnation. It is a life of further development depending on how we enter this life, in what state our self is. As I said earlier, it is creating our own seed. So this life is an opportunity to create our own seed. There is creative activity and no monotony. We will get whatever we wish for. If our self is developed, the Quran says that our wishes will be met. Not only the wishes will be met, but there will be more, because we will need more to go further. We will need more to develop further. Not likely to have gender, as it is based on the inner self. There is no reproduction in the next life as far as the Quran is concerned, because that's it. That was physical and we left it behind in this universe, in this life. Not this physical form. There will be a new form. The Quran points to that, but at this level of our understanding, we cannot understand it. But we can get some clues in terms of our thinking. The Quran doesn't prevent us from thinking by projecting it within the righteous deeds. Why death? Now, death is a very important event in our life. We cannot experience our own death, but we do experience the death of others. This is a deadline for the physical life to end, so it is finite. We taste death when we look at it from the self's perspective. The Quran says every self will taste death. See how beautifully the Quran separates the self from the body. It says it will taste death, and then it says it will never taste death again. So if our self is developed, it will never ever meet another death. And the Quran recognizes the shock of death. Religion is the product of death, i.e. man tries to find an answer to this problem. Contrary to that, Deen, as in the Quran, explains the purpose of life and death. It presents a standard in terms of the permanent values and tells us that look at your own self and become more self-conscious, become more self-aware, know the human problems and try to get yourself involved in solving the problem. Don't be the part of problem, but be the part of solution. It is part of the evolutionary process, physical to non-physical. And finally, Iman in Allah means developing conviction by using intellect and reasoning in the Quranic values through a process based on evidence over a period of time. We should have Iman in the human self, and it is very easy. We can look inwards and find out ourselves what exactly we have. I'll go over it again. We have a sense of identity. We know we exist and doesn't change as we live our life. We have a sense of being at a point in time based on our experiences, education, training, behavior, outlook, values, etc. Iman in the continuity of life, that we should look at the purpose of life, that this life should not end with death. We should not want it should end with death, and then bring ourselves in line within the permanent values, and then see what change comes within us. And the change will define us, that what we were, what we are, and what we can be. And Quran defines all these stages, tells us that we can inwardly hold our own self accountable. We should look at the problems in the world and see what solutions the human intellect has come to so far and what solution the Quran is presenting. And we can work on that and see through our own intellect and reasoning whether this is possible or not. Iman in the law of requital. If we look at the law of requital, the way it is working within us and around us, then we can come to this conclusion that it is working. Everything, every thought and every decision we make in our life has a consequence. And the negative consequences are the ones which sometimes create a lot of psychological problems. So the Quran actually calls itself a mercy for human beings, or something in which we should feel pride, we should feel happy that it has come to us as an external guidance. But remember, This is a choice. It is not imposed on us. It is our own choice whether to understand it and understand the permanent values and then look at the world the way it is and then see what solution it is providing to us. I've seen some of the people, they pick and choose and try to give their own meanings to the verse. The Quran must be taken as one whole. We can't pick and choose. It is all interconnected with each other. It takes us from individual to a collective system. If we cannot understand the effects one has as an individual, we cannot understand the collective system it is asking us to develop or build or establish. And Iman in this fact that the creation of the universe and man himself is with a purpose as part of a special program. It makes us important. It puts emphasis on us that the whole universe is created for me. Just look at the universe around us and see, wow, this is for us. And conclusions, this universe is for us as we make it meaningful through our activity. Death is universal and is for the physical body only. We are defined by both physical body and our inner self in this life. For the development of the self, physical body serves as a tool. At a human level, at a human self level, life is one continuity. Survival after physical death is for all human beings. Development of our self is within our own grasp and is based on the process of our accountability. Thank you very much.